Good morning, adventurers. My name is Ben, and welcome to a morning show where I sit around, drink some tea, and talk about D&D. First up for T&D today, a little less frantic than last time, we have the I Am Just a Woman with a Master's Degree that loves tacos mug, and inside of it, we have some organic throat coat from Traditional Medicines. I was yelling over music at work all night last night, and then I came home and I played D&D for 3 hours, wherein I gave probably about 8 to 12 minute long story spiel in character to secure us free stay at it it would have cost us like 2 gold in game probably, but it's about the character work. But that's not what we're talking about today. Today what we're talking about is Spelljammer. Oh boy, my camera went way out of focus for some reason. We're talking about Spelljammer today. Specifically, we are going to be talking about the first of 3 of the books in here. This is going to be Spelljammer week here on GMA, and so we are going to start off with the Astral Adventurer's Guide. I am really excited about this one. I really enjoyed this set. I did. Full disclosure, I love the space stuff, and I was super psyched to get to read this book and to read the whole set, really. So we're going to break it down. We're going to talk about this book today. I'm excited about it, so let's go ahead and let's dive into it, shall we? So first off, if you're confused for some reason, Spelljammer came out in a 3-volume set. This is the first of, well, quote-unquote the first. I'm calling it the first of the 3 volumes. This is essentially the Player's Handbook / Dungeon Master's Guide for this specific setting. Again, as I mentioned in the first look, I do think that this warrants its own sort of set of things because of how different it is than so many of the other settings that we have seen from Wizards so far. However, it is interesting to me that they decided to actually break it down into these 3 separate books. I kind of would think it would be 2, just the adventure module, and then this plus the Monster Menagerie, but it's not really the point. Each of the books is 64 pages long, so you get a grand total of 192, there we go, pages, plus a DM screen and a slipcase for the whole set, which is pretty cool in its own right. But let's go ahead and let's flip this bad boy open and get into it, shall we? So the first thing that you need to know about this is that it's broken up into 3 separate chapters. Chapter 1 is Character Options, Chapter 2 is Astral Adventuring, and Chapter 3 is the Rock of Brawl. So we're just going to go ahead and we're going to get into it with Character Options first off. There's not a whole lot here. It's mostly, it is just a couple of backgrounds and some races that are in here, which we will go ahead and we will talk about real quick here. The backgrounds are just that. They are the current 5th edition style backgrounds. They are not the 1D&D style backgrounds, so it is not the ones that have your ability scores tied to it. It doesn't have feats tied to it. It just is what it is. They are little backgrounds, still worth having in your general arsenal for actually like building characters, because I think backgrounds are something that get overlooked a lot, which is why I am glad that they're making them more valuable in 1D&D. Not the point. But in this book, they are just that. They are the background features of your character. Nothing overly special. You have the options of either the Astral Drifter or the Wild Spacer. Essentially, whether you are going to be somebody in the Astral Sea that just sort of like goes on with your life in there, or if you're going to be somebody who is more like piratey, I get. Like, it's hard to describe kind of, but whatever. And then the 6 different races that we have the Astral Elf, the Auto Gnome, the Gif, the Hidozi, the Plasmoid, and the Thrycreen. All of these are honestly pretty good. They follow the same sort of power creep for the most part that the rest of the races in 5th edition thus far have as it's gone on in time. The Astral Elf is just another elf. That is kind of ultimately what it is. It's nothing overly special, but it is still pretty good. The Starlight Step is kind of like a Eladrin thing, but it's not quite there. Auto Gnome, I talked about this before. It is pretty nice to have the armored casing that goes with being a construct, and that the fact that they made it so that you can be healed by stuff is also great. However, I don't know that it's worth being its own separate thing from Warforged. I just think that they should have sort of rolled it into Warforged personally, because while it does have a couple of different features in here, I don't really see the point of having it be something different necessarily. I think that they should rebrand Warforged to just kind of be like a construct thing, like an automaton kind of thing, and then have these different options in there for different features that you could pick when you're building the character. The GIF, which are the hippo people, they are the biggest thing with this one, for me at least, is that you are a gunner. You are, if you pick this race and your world doesn't have firearms in it, you are not using two of the core features of the race. So fair warning, make sure that your DM is cool with you having guns, because that's kind of their whole thing, honestly. Like, you can see it in the art here. If you're watching this, if you're listening to it, I'm sorry. The center GIF has a massive gun on his back. Next up is the Hidozi. The ability to glide with them is really, really great. They're like flying squirrel monkey people. So that's really awesome. The ability to fly is fantastic. Bonus action ability to use your feet to manipulate things, which is really great. That gives you some options because it's a bonus action in combat. So you can use it to interact with things. And somebody pointed out to me that this specifically does not say that you can't activate magical items with it, which is only notable because the plasmoids have something that say that they cannot interact with magical items with it, which makes me think that the intention behind the feat is that they are able to activate magic items and interact with magic items in that way. So that's pretty cool, honestly. The plasmoids are so weird, just goo people, and I love it. I'm so here for it. They are probably the weirdest one in this book to me. If you look at the art here, one of them is riding a giant hamster, one of them is a blob, and another one is a normal humanoid shape, not riding a giant hamster. You can squeeze through spaces up or down to 1 inch wide, which is crazy. You can hold your breath for an hour, and you can change the way that you look. This specifically allows you to create like a pseudopod kind of thing, and this is the part where they talk about not being able to interact with magic items. You can create a pseudopod to interact with stuff as part of your action economy, which is also pretty cool. And finally, we have the Thrycreen, who are these bug people, which is, I mean, they're really cool. They really are. The thing with these guys is, one, telepathy, fantastic, always really great. And two, the secondary arms that allow you to wield a light weapon in addition to the other things that you have. So you can be wielding a heavy two-handed weapon and then have a short sword on your side. So you can have your giant great axe, and then you've got on your bug arm another sword that sticks out, and you can stab people with that as a bonus action. That's really, really awesome, as like an offhand attack kind of thing. So those are the 6 races in this book. Again, I think they're pretty cool. I really do. I am a fan of them. I think that they add some of the weirdness to some of these things that we just don't have a whole lot of. Like, we have like the Leonin and the Minotaur and stuff like we don't have anything crazy. Plasmoids, Thrycreen, like the bug people, the ooze people. That's what I want. That's what I am looking for right now. That kind of weirdness to be tacked onto the sides. The Astral Elf, the Autognome, I could take or leave. I do think they're cool. I think they're worthwhile. It's just we have so much of that like core that I'm excited about, the off the beaten path kind of stuff that's in those races there. So kicking forward to the Astral Adventuring, it talks about how spelljamming works. Because if you're unaware, spelljamming is actually an act. It is not like a title or something like that. A spelljammer is essentially the control seat on an astral vessel, which is cool. So spelljamming is the act of like flying the thing, using the controller seat, doing your thing. And so it talks about this chapter 2. Astral Adventuring talks about how spelljamming works, the speed sensations in duels, air envelopes, gravity planes, the astral plane, magic, and all of the different ships. So this section has a lot of pretty dense information in it, honestly. I'm going to go into a little bit of it here, but not like in super detail, because honestly, it's something that you're going to have to read for yourself if this is something that you want to be able to implement. But let's go ahead and let's talk about it a little bit here. So spelljamming, in general, allows you to travel among the astral plane, in wild space, that kind of thing, by sitting in the chair and thinking, pretty much. And you steer the boat that way. So that's pretty cool. Spelljammer Duels, you make checks against each other if there are multiple Spelljammers on the ship, and they're fighting for control of the ship, which is cool. In combat, ships take their own initiative turn, and can be piloted by the individual who is actively spelljamming, free of action economy. So that's cool. That's good. That's good to know. You don't have to commit your entire turn and everything to actively making the ship go somewhere. So that's nice. You're not sending someone to go be handicapped to make the ship move or do something on their turn. Like it's nice that they let you just kind of do the thing. Air envelopes, every item, object, creature, anything in the astral plane or wild space creates an air envelope around itself that is equal to, its size is equal to the longest dimension of something. So if you have something that is 1 foot tall and 100 feet long, that air envelope will stick off of every point on that thing by 100 feet. So the very ends, it'll be a total of 300 feet long and 201 feet tall. Just because of the way that it works. It's going to be a weird oval shape. It doesn't have to be a proper structural shape or something like that. They do talk about how creatures have air envelopes that are cubes, which is weird. Like, I think it's just to like fit them inside of it. But I wish it was just kind of a bubble. That makes more sense to me. When things come into contact with each other, their air bubbles merge, and then when they separate, they revert back to where they were. There are different air qualities that you can have, 3 of them. There's, God, what are they called? It's essentially fine air, like you can breathe it. I think it's just clean. Kind of poisonous air, dirty air, and then there's deadly air. Those are pretty self-explanatory for what they do. Gravity planes. Gravity creates a plane along the axis of whatever it is, so you can walk on top and on bottom of a ship just fine. And essentially you can go and you can run off the front of a ship, jump, fall, and then hit that gravity plane and switch and come back up and under, which is pretty cool. While you're in the air bubble of something, you are affected by its gravity. When things contact each other or come in close enough contact, the gravity is associated with the larger of the things that's there, which is honestly a good way to do that. It's just easier than trying to keep track of different gravities for everything as you go. Just makes life easier. Celestial bodies like large asteroids, planets, that kind of thing, have the central gravity point where everything is sucked towards the center, and the thing with the linear plane is more of like ships and stuff like that. But that's still honestly pretty cool. You can drift along with something. You do begin to get left behind it as you are not moving with it through space, but you do have the ability to drift with it for a little while at least, which is kind of nice. The astral plane as a whole is covered in this section as well. It talks about how to create a system of wild space within the astral plane. Wild space is essentially the cosmo that you are in that point in time. These things like float through the astral plane, but it's essentially like the planetary system that you're in each individual little pocket, and then the astral plane is the thing that fills everything else around it. You can travel between worlds in your system, in your wild space system, using like teleport, which makes sense, but it's still kind of weird. But if you're trying to travel between like independent systems from each other, you have to figure out a way to like get across the planes to get there, which you can do by hopping on a ship and going pew straight out, or you can probably use like plane shift or something like that to get there if you want to. And by probably, I mean technically that's the way that the planescape in 5th edition is laid out, so that's not a bad thing, all things considered, really. There is talk about astral dominions and dead gods in there, which is just, I mean, that's pretty cool. It talks about how magic is also affected in there, and it gives you a couple of different spells, and by a couple I literally mean 2. It's Create Spelljammer and what is the other one? It's like Air Bubble or something. It gives you like a space helmet, pretty much. Pretty cool all around. Then we get to the ships. We get to talk about in this section ship-to-ship combat, crashing, ship repairs, shipboard weapons, and all of the different types of ship. Every single one of them, which is honestly a really, really cool thing. This is the section that I wish was in Saltmarsh when it came out. I wish that Saltmarsh had more than 3 ships in it. I understand why it only had a couple, but I wish that they had a bunch of things, a bunch of super deep, like, customization options, a bunch of different examples of things you could do. It's really cool that it's in here. However, that brings us to the end of Chapter 2. There are, hang on, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, I think, different ship types that you can look at in here to give you plenty of options in your head. That's awesome. It's all centered around combat. The thing that this book is lacking, in my mind, is a proper section on that third pillar that always gets neglected. There is not a whole lot about exploration. I want there to be stuff about exploration in this book because I want it to tell you this is how you set up an exploration thing. There is a sentence in there that just says the DM determines how safe or unsafe the path to your next system is. There's nothing really about the journey. There's nothing really about any of that. I want there to be stuff about actually exploring space in this book. And there's not, which is unfortunate. And I don't love that. That is more covered in Spelljammer, in Saltmarsh, in like the open seas kind of thing. That so you kind of have to merge the two of them a little bit to get everything you want, which does suck because you shouldn't have to buy another book to make the set of 3 books that you just bought more complete. But it is what it is. And honestly, most of the time, people are coming to play spaceship combat and exploring different worlds as opposed to exploring space itself. So I get it. I get it. But I that's one of my hopes for 1D&D, that they flesh out that third pillar more, because there's just not a lot on it that they have officially published. And I know there's plenty of great resources online, stuff like that, but I want to have something to build off of. Just something. Anyway, that was a weird tangent. Getting on to Chapter 3, The Rock of Brawl. This is essentially the hub that they set up in world, but what it is to me is a good example of a fun way to set up a settlement in a spell jamming kind of setting. So what it is an asteroid that has essentially a pirate city on it, with 3 different levels and a farm on the bottom of it, which is kind of fun. But it gives you insight into the hierarchy of it. It gives you insight into the way that it works. Honestly, to me, the most interesting piece of information in it is the fact that it has a giant lake that is refilled by going to an ice asteroid, knocking chunks off of it and dropping it back into the atmosphere to melt back into the lake. That's cool, because they don't have a natural weather pattern on this specifically. That's the kind of thing that I want them to give us examples of, so that people can take that and run with it, make it more interesting, make it more exciting. So the fact that they have that in there is awesome to me. The fields on the bottom, the farm, exist to help clean the air and feed people. Just feed people. It's stuff like that that I like to see, because I like to be able to take the world building that exists, tweak it, adjust it to make it my own, or if I really need to, just take it and stick it in my world so that I can use it. But sometimes you can't have everything you want. But that is everything that is in the Astral Adventurer's Guide. This book was really cool. It really was. It gives you sort of a different type of insight into the way that some of these things work. It references a lot of things in specifically the Monster Menagerie. So the Monster Menagerie is obviously the complement to this book, and then the third book is more of a, well, it's not more of a, it is an adventure module, but it is less referenced in these because it is an adventure as opposed to a source book. But this thing, it's a lot of fun. It really is. It's only 64 pages long, like I mentioned, but it's still pretty cool. Plus, you get this really, really cool map that comes with it that I have not actually ripped out of the back of this. I've looked at pictures of it because I didn't want to rip it out of the back yet. I'm accidentally folding that over. Whoops. So, one of 3 of the Spelljammer books, highly recommend. Super cool. Wish it had a little bit more. Wish it was like, 75 pages long, and it had some more stuff on exploration. But overall, pretty cool. I like it a lot. Definitely recommend this one so far. Spoilers, I'm going to recommend all of them because I think they're really cool and I think it's a really fun system, but I'm doing them one at a time here. So, that is the end of that. Going on to the shows that we have today and tomorrow. Today, what do we have? We have The Paper Dungeon, Chromatic Dice, Beyond the Realms, Unprepared Casters, Greetings Adventurers, Bards of New York, Hapless Heroes, Alien Adventures, Cast Party, Three Black Halflings, Hello from the Magic Tavern, King Leo D&D, Anti-Heroes Anonymous, The Tabletop Tavern, Top of the Round, and the League of Lady Adventurers. And then tomorrow, we have Diary of a Dragon Pit, Star Wars First Resistance, Dungeons and Daddies, Bombarded, Heck of a D&D, Glass Cannon, and the Queer Questers. Check them out. Let them know that I sent you because, again, someday somebody's going to say something to me. I'm going to think that is funny. But until then, I'm just going to keep saying it. But that is everything that I've talked to you guys about today. So thank you so very much for making me a part of your morning routine. I really do appreciate it. And thank you so much in particular to my patrons. You guys are the ones that make this show possible. If you're interested in becoming a patron, check out the link in the episode description. But that brings us to the end of everything for today. So, with all that said, everybody, don't forget, drink tea, play D&D, and keep on rolling.